Hello, hello, and welcome to My Left Ear. I'm Carrie Freeman, the writer, director, producer of My Left Ear. This is a liberal YouTube channel, most of you know, who are checking in right now. I disseminate the news and I share what seems relevant according to My Left Ear. And My Left Ear is what gives me a lot of information and intuition, clues, predictions, etc. So I listen, and I add something called good evidence, which is anything solid and concrete that happens that's good. And I offer meaningful quotes. So people seem to like that. And what I always forget to do, and I'm going to do it from now on, is ask for you to like and subscribe. And that's been working out pretty well recently. We'll talk about that later. Did I say it's July 7th? It's July 7th, Sunday. And I had an experience, was it yesterday? Friday or yesterday? I can't remember. I threw the runes to ask about Joe Biden, like what's going on like with Joe. And I got 3 runes that I really didn't like, but you can't just, oh, I don't like that, I'm going to read another set of runes, you know. And I thought maybe this has to do with the way I framed the question. So I put all the runes back in the bag, and I framed the question differently, which is I'm going to share with you in a minute. And I got very different answer, okay? And I went, you know what? I got to share this with everybody tomorrow, which is today, because it feels significant. And it's also an indicator that the runes connect. They listen. Don't ask me to explain it, but that's my experience personally. So I had a lot of things on my outline, and I just sort of tossed them, the Supreme Court, all kinds of stuff, because this just felt crucial. If you're like me, you've been worried about Joe Biden, you've been upset at this sort of wave that's happening, and within 24 hours, everybody just pouncing on him, the media, some Democrats, and I was flabbergasted that people could, in less than 24 hours, make decisions about Joe Biden's candidacy after his great 4 years as president. So this is why I did this. So here's the first reading, and it's not entirely great to hear, but it provides a contrast for my second reading about him, where I asked the question differently. So the first question yesterday was just between me and me. Is Joe Biden okay right now? All right. So I got the rune of strength, which I thought, oh, well, that's a good one to start off with. I forgot to pull them out today, so please forgive me. It would take me time to do it right now. So Perth, the rune of strength, it has to do with something hidden, a secret. And I thought that was interesting. And Perth strength comes with a strong message. It's not necessarily gentle or passive, but it clears a path for change. And with it, it does caution, sometimes the best action is no action. My interpretation was that the best action is don't drop out of the race. Don't do anything right now, which is what he's chosen to do. He's just going out and rebounding from the debate that caused this kerfuffle, if you remember that word that I used last week. So Perth talks to us about the unknowable, and we are really sitting in the unknowable right now. It can be telling us that Joe's situation is far different than what we perceive it to be. There may be things going on outside of our range of knowing, which I find very interesting. And we keep coming up with unknowable with this Strength Perth card. So we might not be meant to know certain things that will come out later. It does speak of secrets and the unknown. Now, I've been thinking about secrets, and I'm thinking about this past week, all the files on Jeffrey Epstein were opened, and there's all kinds of names in there, including Donald Trump. And so that does speak of secrets, right? Okay, so it says hidden forces and unseen activities. Perth strength tells Joe, there are things going on beyond your control. So it is best to set things aside for now. Take your time. Let life take its course. And I'm adding my 2 cents here, which is what I do every time I come on, is these people have to calm down that jumped on this within 12 hours. Quit, leave. And they have no alternative ideas. Just, we might lose with you, so leave, Joe Biden. He's not doing that. Now, on the material plane, strength is also about surprises, gains, unexpected rewards, but there's always a mystery involved, and there's a mystery right now of this sort of upheaval that we're in. When Perth arrives, Perth invites our spirit to soar to a new perspective of wholeness and acceptance. It provides us with an opportunity to kind of rise above, and then it prepares us to capitalize on opportunities that are coming our way. So there's more truth to be revealed, more information like the Jeffrey Epstein files, and this is how I took it. All right, so the second rune, when I asked the question, how's Joe doing right now, is I got the rune of signals in the reversed position. And it tells us regarding the past or even the present, you may be concerned over what appears to be failed communication. Well, if that ain't the debate, what else would it be? Of course it's the debate. As well as a lack of clarity, Joe's clarity in the debates. So the rune tells us that he may feel inhibited from accepting what is being offered, like please step down. A sense of futility may overwhelm, but it does say, that's a PD here, it does say, remember that what is happening is timely to your process, Joe. So this is a more like amor fati, love of fate, what's meant to be. And it does say, if the well is clogged, this is the moment for cleansing out the old. Consider the use of adversity. That's what it's saying right now. Signals. Consider the use of adversity. So it is admitting that there is adversity right now. And be prepared, it says, listen to carefully, to capitalize on opportunities that come your way. All right, so the last one is the rune that is the chilliest. I've mentioned it a number of times. Stand still. I'm just kind of reaching my hand in here to see if I see the stand still rune. Oh, I just came right to it. Amazing. So that's it. It's like stand alone. You're alone. Okay. Now, Joe isn't truly alone because he has amazing support from people that really love him, but his family is really solid. And his vice president is really solid. But let me read you Stand Still because it's chilly. It does represent the property of ice. And it says the winter of your spiritual life is upon you. You may find yourself entangled in a situation to whose implications you are, in effect, blind. You may feel powerless to do anything except submit, surrender, even sacrifice, a long-cherished desire. But then it says, be patient, for this is the period of gestation before rebirth. So buried in all these doubtful answers on my first question, it keeps coming up with, but wait, okay? It does say positive accomplishment is unlikely right now. And this kerfuffle is, what, a week old? I thought it might take about 2 weeks for it to start to, as Taylor Swift would write, calm down. So positive accomplishment is unlikely. But while that's going on, Joe is just bouncing around the country talking to people. And I heard him this morning in a church, and he sounded fabulous. But it does say there's a freeze on useful activity. Your plans are on hold. You may have to submit. He may have to submit. Be prepared to spend some time waiting. That's kind of what's going on right now. And don't depend on others right now. But it also says there's no reason for anxiety. Just submit and be still, Joe. Well, he's not going to be still, but he may save his good stuff for a week or two from now. But it tells him to prepare. Be ready for when the ice melts, Joe Biden. Ice always melts. The ice melts. More is revealed and forward progress can be made. Submit right now. What has been full must be empty. And Joe, trust your process. All right. So I just didn't feel good about entirely this reading, the ones that I just shared with you. So I said, let me look at how I worded that. So I did word it to indicate, like, how is he doing now? So we're talking about right now. So then I worded it differently. Put all the runes back, shuffled them up, and my question is it going to end up being good for Trump, for Joe Biden? Will it end up being good for Joe Biden? My subconscious typed Trump in here. That's amazing. I only noticed it right this minute. I'm not worried about it. That was just a Freudian slip. So is it going to end up being good for Joe Biden? That's really, like, kind of jump to 4 months from now, okay? All right, so the first rune I got was the rune of growth. It's called Berkana. I might find it in here. Growth is good. It's growth and rebirth. So that rune fosters growth, both symbolically and actually. And it does actually say may occur in affairs of the world. It leads to blossoming and ripening. It says, consider your issue with care and awareness. But of course he is. And of course his team is. Disperse resistance. Now he might be silently carrying around some resentments. And I say silently. But it says disperse all that right now. Just let it go. Clean up the dark corners and then move to accomplish your work. It says that. Move to accomplish your work. Growth is concerned with the flow of beings into their new forms. And for me, that meant a second term. And it advises Joe to hold firm. Through steadfastness and right attitude, further blossoming can occur. So that's much more hopeful. Also, Berkana growth says, know when it's time to retreat and consolidate. Control of emotions is at issue here. I mean, he might, have a feeling like he wants to get up and just tell everybody off. He's not going to do that. He's got too much emotional intelligence. So during times of transition and change, it's important not to collapse yourself into your emotions, Joe. So you're doing the right thing. You're staying positive, you're acting like a winner, and you're moving forward. But this rune of growth, it's a rune of opportunities and challenges that are typical here. But it's about gaining ground. And this is an excellent rune to contemplate in a meditative way. It'll sort of make everything blossom. It is a rune of protection. It's a rune of healing. It's a really great rune to pull. And it says, you will progress. This leads to, there's the word, blossoming and maturing in the course of death, rebirth, and renewal. So, I think that in a very symbolic way, and please take it symbolically, there's the death cycle happened with the debate. And honestly, I feel like it was meant to be, because it kind of lit a new light under him, a new fire under him. I don't think he expected to show up so poorly, and it was a shocker. He came back the next morning, like within 12 hours, but very uncomfortable, very painful. But this leads to blossoming and maturing. And boy, did it put him on alert. Then the second rune I pulled about how's he going to be doing in the next 3 or 4 months. I got protection, the rune of protection. And it's aligned with the elk. It's about knowing when it's time to retreat and consolidate. It reminds me of that song, Know When to Hold 'Em. It just reminded me of that. Control of emotions is here. And that's not the first time we've heard that today. Don't collapse yourself into the emotions. I don't think Joe will. I think he's just got this core of discipline inside of him, because new opportunities and challenges are typical of the protection rune. Informs us that by giving ground, you can actually gain. I've kind of got this image of, what they say, this thing of, well, just let so-and-so hang themselves. That's what's coming to mind with giving ground. This is, again, a rune of protection and a rune of healing. There's a lot of that in this reading today. At the end of the day, this rune of protection is about the war with oneself. But it does say you will progress. This debate debacle happened early. And what I find interesting was that it was the Biden's team that suggested doing it early. Interesting, right? But now it gives him this time to have a comeback. And everybody loves a comeback. He probably gave the Republicans false hope. Yeah, he's going down, Joe's going down, look at what, but he came back the next morning. So the final rune here in this last throw, which is actually good, is the warrior. And I always think of Joe from Scranton, Pennsylvania as a warrior, like a real middle American grounded guy, Joe from Scranton. So it's about funding a will through action unattached to the outcome. And Joe Biden doesn't seem to be, he's intent on the outcome, which is him being a second-term president, but he doesn't act like he's scared, all right? So he doesn't act like he's attached to the outcome, although of course he is, but it's more of an intention than fear. This rune recommends let the will of heaven flow through you. And honestly, Joe Biden is a very spiritual guy. I mean, he's rooted in religion and spirit. So embodied in this rune is the energy of discrimination, a sword-like quality that helps him cut away the old, the dead, and the extraneous. And that would be what I would refer to as Donald Trump, the old, the dead, and the extraneous. And be aware that the universe always has the first move, which makes me think we're gonna get surprised over the next 3 or 4 months. But I mean, really surprised. Patience is the key here. And they emphatically talk about patience right there with the spiritual warrior. And the spiritual warrior advises Joe Biden, tap into your most profound resources. Then also with the warrior is associated with the rune of sun. masculine energy. It does say that this matchup, this wrestling political matchup is timely and providential. It's meant to be. It's meant to be, no matter what a horror story it looks like to us. And the urge towards conquest or self-conquest is a lifelong pursuit. And it calls for Joe's keen awareness, single-mindedness, and willingness to undergo this passion with trust. And I think that's how he operates, okay? Now, the most difficult, tricky question here, or a message here, is telling him that he must let go or sacrifice an old way of thinking. I'm not sure what that has to do with. It could be Hunter. It could be some small thing that he has to accept that he doesn't achieve, but that's not the second term presidency. That's something else. So he's connecting with his higher self. He was in church this morning. And this is a rune of courage and dedication. So this second reading really made me feel like, oh, okay, he had to go into that kind of, I mean this metaphorically, please, not physically, not actually, but a metaphoric deep dive, into the dark caves before he starts to come back, renew. But I'll tell you, anybody in Washington that thought that they could suggest he quits the running doesn't really know who he is. He's really not that person to quit. And even though he speaks softly, this is a very strong man. And imagine how many years he's been in politics and what he's seen, what he's endured, people that have turned their back on him. And speaking of that, I just have to mention this. It's not on my notes or anything, but as I've been picking through Twitter, which is very disturbing and negative, Meghan McCain keeps coming up. That little trollop, Meghan McCain, and she's saying the nastiest things about Joe and Jill Biden, and she's getting creamed for it. And it's just amazing because Joe Biden was so kind to her when John McCain died. It's amazing. But she's getting squashed, and that's what's happening. Now, there's something else, and I think I spoke about this a long time ago, but it keeps repeating. And over the 4th of July holiday, it was the 5th year of my brother's death. He died on July 1st, 5 years ago, after coming out and visiting with me. It was very poignant, and he and I healed a lot of history. And when he was here, my left ear knew that he was going to pass, and that this would be the last time I would see him. But I remember talking to him one day on the phone. He was very well read. He knew a lot of history. I mean, he really absorbed. He had a photographic mind, and he didn't have a college education, but he was much smarter than most people that had a college education. So one day I said to him on the phone, and it was before the primary, the presidential primary, anything. And I said, do you know who Kamala Harris is? And he said, no. And I said, well, she's from California. Look her up. I gave him the spelling of her name. I said, for some reason, I see her in the White House. And I don't know if we're ready for a female president yet. I mean, I am, but the world. And so he looked her up, and he was very impressed. And I said, so here's the thing. I just think she's going to end up in the White House. And I didn't know what that looked like. It seemed off to me. And then she didn't, she dropped out of the primary. It didn't look great. And then Joe, who was like Seabiscuit, coming from the back, and people had dismissed him, he got the nomination, and he chose Kamala Harris to be his running mate and VP, which was pretty darn brave of him. But he saw something in her, and it was a good choice. So if you've noticed, she's become more emboldened in the best way. Like she's really shown up for the women's issue, abortion and choice. And it's almost like she's been training. Should she have to step in to the presidential role? I'm really comfortable with it now. I see her growth. I see her power and her confidence, and that she's learned a lot. And I see that Joe really respects her and they have a good relationship. So now I'm thinking about that vision I had. And I did think I'm going to say when Joe continues being our president and wins the second term, there is a possibility, because of his age, that Kamala may have to take over. That's all I'm going to say. And you just have to realize that's a possibility. That may be one of the things that people are pounding on him to not run, because there might be this silent conversation about, but a black woman would become president if anything happened. And I think that's a quiet little backdoor conversation that's going on. But now, because of my left ear, I'm thinking I may have really known something like over 5 years ago. And we'll see. We'll just see. But I had to remind you of the story if I hadn't told you about it before. But something came up the last 3 days about my left ear that I was like, wow, I'm pretty impressed with that. I know that sounds weird, like I'm patting myself on the back, but it doesn't have to do with politics. About 3 weeks ago, I started to think about my car. I have a 2018 Hyundai Elantra, great car. It's my second Elantra. I have loved it. And I thought, you know, my mechanic that I've had for years and years and years out here, and I wrote about him one day in the community section. I'm going to look and see if I can find it, because it's about how he came to America with nothing. And he built up his own successful mechanic shop and raised 2 sons, and just the most wonderful guy. But I said to myself, you maybe need to look around for a mechanic, because Frank might retire soon. And then who would you wouldn't know anybody. So I started looking around, and I found a mechanic right in my area that got great reviews. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take the car in. It's working fine for an evaluation, because if there's something that's going to go wrong with the transmission or whatever, they just plug it in and do this diagnostic, and they tell you what's about to die or what you need to do. So I made very busy shop. So I made an appointment for next week from now, next week. And on Wednesday, the day before the 4th of July, I was driving on a main thoroughfare here in Los Angeles called La Brea. It's a big street, famous street. And my car just stopped. It just went, psh, we're tired of running, and it stopped in the middle of traffic. I put it in park, and I got it going again, and I headed home. And then it did it at the market, and I went, oh my God, and I got it running again. So I got home, and now the next day is 4th of July, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take my chances, and I'm just going to run up to the grocery store. Well, that was okay. Nothing happened. And then Friday, I thought, well, you know what, maybe I just got some bad gasoline. I took it out, and it started collapsing on me. So it stopped on the freeway. It's amazing I'm okay, right? Stopped on the freeway, and I'm going in the direction of this this mechanic that I had called like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he said, well, come right in. And I was nearby, and I was like, please just get me to this auto body place. Well, I got in there, and the guy came right out, and I had no oil. None. And while I was recovering, my Chris, my caretaker, was driving, and neither of us thought of checking the oil or the water or anything like that. So he's got my car. They're closed on the weekend. And but before I called the new mechanic, I was also heading in the direction of Frank's Auto Body, my old guy that's been working on my cars for 30 years. And I called, and he answered the phone. I said, Frank, it's Carrie. I haven't seen you in a while. But Carrie, how are you? Da, da, da. And I said, so Frank, something's wrong with my car. He said, you know, Carrie, I closed the shop and retired in March. And March was when I had the accident. And he said, so it's not there anymore. And I'm in Reseda, and I'm doing a little bit of work here and there out of my own private garage, but basically I'm retired now. So he was gone. When I went to that new mechanic and I thought, Frank's probably going to retire soon, Frank was gone, and I didn't know it. I found it out 2 days ago. And so I said, okay, Frank, I'm gonna try to head over to your house. Because he said, bring it over to my house if you can. But it stopped again, and I went, I can't drive over to Frank's house. I got to get it to this new mechanic. So I got it to the new mechanic. And I was reflecting on weeks ago, my left ear was saying, Frank's not going to be around much longer. And I don't mean expiring, the business, because he's a long distance runner. He's in great shape. And you really need to find somebody else. And now I'm marveling at this. You know, I mean, even I will be surprised sometimes when I get this kind of advice and direction. And I don't know how this happens, but my left ear. And if I hadn't picked up the phone and called Frank before the car stopped again, I would never have found out. I would have driven over to his mechanic shop, and he would have been gone. I would have been, oh my God, what happened? Did he pass? No, he didn't pass. So when I reflect on this thing about Kamala, see, I'm coming back to the politics now, and I had this vision a long time ago. I'm really interested in watching how all of this is going to play out and see how far I might spook myself and you possibly. So we wait and see. But this second, so what it reminds me of is how I frame a question. I now know it's just more important than ever before. I'm very careful how I frame these questions. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot more to talk about, but this just felt like crucial. So I cut out a lot of my notes and I just focused here today. Wanted to share with you, and again, if I did this, I apologize, but I just love this quote. My friend Barry in Louisiana said that we were talking about politics, and he said, Carrie, I think the girls are going to win it for us. And I can't get that sentence out of my mind. I think the girls are going to win it for us, meaning the women are going to vote, they're going to save us, and they're going to reinstate Joe Biden. So I'm just sharing that with you. Just, I think the girls are going to win it for us. Now, good evidence, my good evidence, and I wrote that on my community section on July 1st, I think. It was 1st or 2nd. All of a sudden, I made it to 6,000 subscribers, just out of the blue. And then I got more followers, like a lot of followers, more than I'm used to getting. And it feels like I knew that after this extreme accident, and I'm still healing, life would not be the same. This was going to be kind of like a rebirth, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. But after being gone and doing hardly any videos for you guys, I've slowly started to come back, as you've noticed, but I've come back bigger, and I haven't really done anything to make that happen. It just happened. So that is really good evidence for me, because there have been times when I thought, I've got my people, and I don't know that this thing is going to grow. But it began growing, so I'm sharing that with you. And then out of the blue, I got a message on Twitter from a Ukrainian soldier that started following me. And he wrote me a little note, and I wrote him back, and he sent me a picture. He's in the field, he's in Ukraine, he's a soldier with a very long Ukrainian name, and the nicest man. And I'm just kind of thrilled at writing with him back and forth. And I even asked him, all right, since I'm talking with you, why do the Ukrainian people like cats so much? And he wrote back and said, great question. And then he sent me this whole list of the reasons, but they have kind of a spiritual connection with cats. And if I think about it, I'll see if I can post it in my community section, because I know a lot of you like cats. And Petey's at my feet. He's just conked out. He doesn't want to get, I was hoping he'd get on the desk and say hello, but he's just lying there, and we're not going to bother him today. Anyway, I'm going to come back and do a Patreon show tomorrow. This took me a lot, rewriting this took me a lot of time today. So I have more material for us to talk about. In plain language, I do not feel, I do not see Joe Biden stepping down. He's not that guy. I just think maybe he cares more about the future of this country, you know, than almost anybody else. The people that are calling for it are not really thinking through the absolute disaster of trying to choose the next candidate in VP. People are avoiding talking about Kamala, but I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay. There's a pretty strong rumor that there are videos. Sit down. There are actual videos of Trump assaulting 12 and 13-year-old girls at one of Epstein's parties. And supposedly this is coming out. And I had mentioned something huge and irreversible might happen, and this might be it. So we wait. I'll see you again in a few days, gathering all the nuts and coming out with the next outline and my left ear. So keep the faith. And if you need to turn off the news, turn off the news. It's like a little vacation. You know, nothing we can do anyway. We're just watching this crazy stuff going on. So stay grounded. And Oliver Wendell Holmes, he was famous. What position? I'm going to have to look it up, and I apologize. He said, have faith and pursue the unknown end. And I think that's kind of a perfect quote for right now. Have faith and pursue the unknown end. That's how I'm finishing it today. So sending you a big hug. I'll see my Patreon people, I like to say Patreon people, tomorrow. And have a good Sunday. And you take care. Bye-bye.